The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Somebody asked me to talk about the Bodhisattva mind. Well, I think we need the Bodhisattva mind. There's been a lot of grief and sorrow in our world, as seems to be keep happening. The shootings at the mosques in New Zealand. You know, New Zealand's not like that. It's a peaceful country, and have this happen, you think, you know. However, the Bodhisattva mind, there were people who bravely tried to stop this gunman. Women, an Afghan man who actually saved a lot of lives. Just people bravely just stepping forward and trying to stop killing, just without thinking. Bodhisattvas. There's a lovely story of the cat man of Aleppo. This is Aleppo in Syria, where they had war for years and years. BBC News. I love the BBC News because it's worldwide. And there's this nice story about this man who used to have a cat sanctuary. He had 180 cats that he'd rescued. And he'd also take care of, people too. He'd help them too. But he spent a lot of time, just helping beings, helping cats, helping kids, helping all sorts of people. Christian, Muslim, anybody. And then his cat sanctuary got bombed, and most of the cats died. And finally he escaped with his last 6 cats and a whole bunch of injured people. Then later, he came back to this war-torn place at great risk. And he helped a lot of people. He'd bring food to people, both Christian and Muslim families. He'd help kids, he'd help cats. And he would do this crowdfunding thing. So he'd get money to help, and people would support him. So he finally built an orphanage and a kindergarten and another cat sanctuary and a veterinary clinic. And also he ran courses for kids to help them to learn to take care of animals so that they could learn empathy in the midst of this awful warfare, because he said it really helps them to get over their own, trauma and pain, to help take care of other beings, to learn empathy, not to just cut themselves off, as can happen when somebody's been in some horrible situation, but to keep that heart open. This is a really wonderful thing to do. All these things he did, helping people. As I said, threatened, bombed, but he didn't get, actually he was okay, he didn't get hurt. But just doing this over and over again, day after day. And he said he had always felt it was his duty and pleasure to help people and animals in need of help. He said it makes one the happiest person in the world, and also lucky. I guess he's still alive. But it was his duty and pleasure. It wasn't just a duty, I should do this, but he wanted to do it. His whole heart wanted to help beings. And you often see people, stories like this of people like that who over and over will help beings. They just can't help it. Or other people who rise to the occasion, like that bombing in New Zealand, and help out without thinking. Just help people, protect people. And so you see the awful news, but you also see these little stories. And you also see in people's own lives, people, much less dramatic things, both dramatic things and undramatic things. All over the world, there are people doing things like this. People rising to the occasion in some dramatic moment to save somebody. People just helping a family in need, or feeding hungry people, or working at a soup kitchen and those things. Or people just practicing kindness, just on a daily basis, trying to be a nice, good person. All over the world, all religions, all nationalities, all countries, there are people doing this. And we just need to remember that. there's the Bodhisattva heart, the Bodhisattva mind, all over the place. And no one can do anything about it. In our local hospital, there's always notes about human kindness and stuff. And there's one thing you see on each of the rooms. There's a thing saying, there's a quote from Henry James. The most important thing, 1, be kind. 2, be kind. 3, be kind. It makes a point. I thought it was very nice. Now we're Buddhists and we try to cultivate the Bodhisattva mind. Well, what is the Bodhisattva mind? In the Shishogi, Great Master Dogen says, when one awakens to true wisdom, it means that one is willing to save all living things before one has actually saved oneself. And he goes on to say that anybody, whoever they may be, should awaken this desire to help all beings. And many people do awaken this desire, and many people, it's dormant, but I think it's still there. And he talks about the 4 wisdoms, as we know, charity, tenderness, benevolence, and sympathy, which we talk about a lot, so I won't do that today. But this is how we practice the Bodhisattva mind, awaken that, practicing charity, tenderness, benevolence, and sympathy. Kindness, simple kindness. I talk a lot about kindness because it's such an essential part of our practice and of our lives as human beings. Without kindness, we wouldn't survive at all. We have to have kindness just to survive as a species. But kindness isn't just an external thing. It's not just a duty. I shall be kind. I will treat people with kindness. It's not a cold thing. That's really hard to just do something as a duty. I must be kind to people, whether I like it or not. There has to be warmth in it. There has to be that deep wish to help beings. People feel that warmth when it comes from the true heart's wish to practice kindness. It makes a difference. Well, we have to start somewhere. So to treat people kindly, even if we don't feel like it, it does go a long way. To be patient with someone who's bad-tempered or selfish is not easy. And not to snap back. Well, it's quite laudable to do, not to snap back, to actually restrain oneself and be patient. Not easy. There's a nice story somebody told me the other day. I hope they wouldn't mind me saying this, talking about this. Their mother in the hospital, sick. Mother had always been very crabby. And in hospital, she was even more crabby, just awful. And all the nurses would avoid the family. Just they'd see them and scurry away. And never mind not wanting to take care of Mum because she was so difficult. And finally the daughter said to Mum, you need to say thank you. It would really help. Just say thank you. And Mum growled. And then Mum, she was feeding her mother at the time with this. So after a little bit, Mother said, thank you. And just kept on feeding her. Didn't say anything. And the went, thank you. Thank you. How am I doing? But then Mother got transferred to another floor in the hospital and just started being nice. And she was thanking people. And the nurses would come up to the family and say, what a nice mother you have. She thanks us all the time. She's so kind. So the Bodhisattva act was telling Mum, you need to thank people. It wasn't just Mum working on herself, which was nice, but to actually say to Mum, you need to do something. Not just lie down and say, well, that's how she is, I'll just bear it. But actually to say, you need to change. You need to do something. And that was the Bodhisattva act. It's not just bearing something, gritting your teeth and bearing it, but sometimes to have to say, you need to do something different here. This is not working. You'll just alienate people and make yourself unhappy. Because if you treat people with kindness, they respond with kindness and you're happier. So how do we cultivate this kind heart, this warmth that tries to understand why the person's like this? Why are they crabby and difficult? Or at least give them the benefit of the doubt. The other day I read something that when you understand somebody, you cannot help but love them, which is really profound, actually. if I could understand really what a person is coming from, why they're the way they are, how could I help but love that person, It's really something to contemplate and to work on, Sometimes it's really hard to love somebody you find difficult. But maybe we can try to understand a little bit, why they're like this. Maybe the person's afraid. Maybe something's happened and they're upset and I don't know, Maybe they're afraid of relinquishing control. A lot of people seem to have this control thing, and when they start getting weak and sick, like this person's mom, they get crabby, even if they weren't crabby already, which also was the case. But why is it like this? Why do they feel they need to be in control? Fear. Whatever it may be. To relinquish judgment and not to take things so personally would really help. Even when we had to say something to the person, to be able to do it with a kind heart and a pure intention, not just trying to fix them and make them nicer for me, but to say, this might really help this person if they just practice a little gratitude. Actually, it's a great gift to somebody to tell them something kindly that they need to hear. Cultivating kindness of thought, kindness of heart, as well as kindness in word and deed, to practice that human warmth. As Dogen says, to behold all beings with the eye of compassion and to speak kindly to them is the meaning of tenderness. Not just speaking kindly, but also beholding them with this eye of compassion. And it says, speaking to others whilst thinking that one loves all living things as if they were one's own children. Kindness of thought, practicing that kind heart, not just in the word and deed, which is good, but kind thought. To imagine thinking of each person as though they were one's own child. It would actually be pretty hard to really do that, but we can aspire to that. We can kind of point in that direction. The person who's really getting by our nose, really annoying us. What is this, my child? That tenderness of heart, wishing to take care of beings, to understand why they like this. Not because they're a happy person, because they're an unhappy person. If they're really difficult, they just try to see people with that eye of compassion, kindness of thought. The Bodhisattva vows, awakening the heart of the Bodhisattva, the great vows, the deep aspiration. However innumerable beings may be, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible the passions may be, I vow to transform them all. However limitless the Dharma may be, I vow to comprehend it completely. However infinite the Buddha's truth is, I vow to realize it. These are huge vows, huge. And when we make these vows, it helps us to cultivate that aspiration, to say the vows to ourselves or in the presence of others as we do at our renewal of vows ceremony. It helps us to cultivate that aspiration, to turn the heart towards that. I wish to do this, however big it may be, however impossible it may seem, however inexhaustible my passions may be, however huge the Buddha's truth is, and however many beings there are, I vow to make my best effort and to do it. And the longer we live with these vows, the deeper our aspiration becomes. It kind of digs in deep. So it comes from the bottom of our heart, as it were. As I said, it's not just the aspiration to save beings, it's the aspiration to save ourselves as well, transforming our inexhaustible passions and understanding the Dharma and realizing the infinite truth of the Buddha. We're working on our own salvation as well. We're not just trying to help everybody else, because we are beings too. An enormous and deep aspiration that's much bigger than we are. And it goes beyond our little life and death. I'll come back to that. And that's what makes it possible. Here in the monastery, we work fairly hard. Everybody actually works hard. Just being a human being is hard work. And training is a full-time job, as we know. And here, as monks, some of us are young and many of us are getting a bit older, quite a bit older. How do we keep on doing it with vigor and with joy? People say, how do you do this? But other people, with families, work really hard, both parents working, they come home and there's the kids, and just all the things people do with getting the laundry done and the shopping. How do they do it? Well, as Buddhists, we have this great benefit of this aspiration for the way, our aspiration for truth, our deep wish to train ourselves and realize the truth for ourselves, and that Bodhisattva vow to help beings, to help all beings. So when we start to flag, not just me, I will save beings, it's not a martyr thing, but just wishing to help beings, to feed our little cat when we come home exhausted, or help somebody who needs a sympathetic ear when we actually much rather go and put our feet up. Just those little ways that vow to help beings wherever help is needed. And this helps us to find the energy and the willingness to do that, to train ourselves, to relinquish our selfish desires, or even our not the selfish desires, just I need to have dinner, but it's not going to happen yet, it's going to happen after I talk to this person or whatever. The willingness to do what we need to do whilst taking care of ourselves and not martyring ourselves to some ideal. Yes, sometimes you don't get what you want, but we're not just saying, I don't matter, I don't need anything. You just end up with a lot of crabby martyrs, and we don't want that. We don't want to be a pain in the Sangha. We try to rest and relax and take care of ourselves too. Otherwise, yes, we're just crabby. Don't want that. This is for all of us, not just for monks, of course. We all have this aspiration for the way, or we wouldn't be here. Here we are, we're the converted, I'm preaching to the choir. We all have that deep wish to help beings. And actually, I think everybody has that wish somewhere there, even if they don't cultivate it and they pretend they don't have it. Because we're all connected. Everybody is connected with everybody else. We cannot help being affected by other people, their suffering, their joy, their sorrow. And even when it's not recognized or acted upon, it would be really hard to enjoy something when you knew it was at the expense of other people. Somebody else is suffering so that I can have this. I'll just enjoy it anyway. No, not really. You can't enjoy it. Whether it's people or animals. See an animal in pain. Of course you want to help. You feel it. Because of sympathy. We all have that sympathy. One of the four wisdoms. You have to really work at turning away from something if you want to do that. I'm not going to see it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to know about it. It's hard work, pushing it away. Because in fact, our true nature is compassion. It's our true nature to turn and realize our connection with other beings, to help where we can, to feel charity, tenderness, benevolence, and sympathy, and to practice them. It's our nature. The Bodhisattva mind, which is really the Bodhisattva heart, the heart of warmth and kindness, and that aspiration that we can cultivate until it comes from the bottom of our Bodhisattva heart, right from our toes up, this deep wish. In the Avatamsaka scripture, which is huge, there's this little verse. So long as earth exists, so long as beings exist, so long as acts and afflictions exist, i.e. so long as karma and suffering exist, so will my vow remain. That's big. And the more we contemplate this, the deeper it becomes. It's not a self thing. I will save all beings. We are beings too. We need saving too. We're not that great. We're just bodhisattvas with a little b. Bodhisattvas in training. We're not bodhisattvas with a big B like Avalokiteshvara and all them. But we're working on it. Just little b bodhisattvas. But we're doing our best. That great vow. So will my vow remain. We may come and go. Our little life comes and goes. But our vow will remain. How does that work? Who will pick it up? Will it be us? Will we continue this vow? Come back in another body and pick up the vow? Will it be somebody else? I think that question's probably kind of meaningless, I suspect, because who are we anyway? Somebody, beings, will continue this vow, carrying it on. We make the great vow. It will remain. The vow remains for the benefit of all beings. Not our vow, just the vow. So long as earth exists, so long as beings exist, so long as acts and afflictions exist, so will my vow remain. Yay! And as Dogen says, O you seekers of enlightenment, meditate deeply upon these teachings and do not make light of them. Give respect and reverence to their merit, which brings blessing to all living things. Help all beings to cross over to the other shore, all of us together, not just them, not just us, but all of us together, because we're all actually one being, all of us together. Jukai starts next week. We start our precepts retreat next Sunday. To take the precepts and to try to keep them is to cultivate that Bodhisattva mind, that Bodhisattva heart. Let's do it. Thank you.